Hi, I'm Brett Johnson, former United States Most Wanted cybercriminal, now good guy, or as the United States Secret Service called me, the original internet godfather. Now, how did I get that title? 39 felonies, a place on the United States Most Wanted list, an escape from prison, and I built and ran the first organized cybercrime community. It was called Shadow Crew. It was a precursor of today's darknet and darknet markets. It laid the foundation for the way modern cybercrime channels operate today. Those 39 felonies had to do with refining modern financial cybercrime as we now know it. Yes, they do frown upon that. And yes, you do go to prison for that stuff. Deservedly so. Now, look, there's a whole story behind all that. We don't have time for that today because today, right now, it's time for the Brett Johnson Show. Today's episode, why zero-day attacks do not matter, when we come back. Okay, so we are back to the Brett Johnson Show. Today's episode, zero-day attacks do not matter. And let me tell you, me just saying that is going to raise some hackles. There's somebody out there in the news, in the media, or in one of these 7,500 plus security companies that's going to be like, oh, I can't believe it. I can't, my heart. I can't believe he's saying zero-day attacks don't matter. I mean, just yesterday in the news, the Google Zero Panel, which is a panel that's designed to find zero-day vulnerabilities and report on them, news story came out that for 2021, the panel found 58 zero-day vulnerabilities, which is more than double what the panel found in 2020. They found 25 in 2020. So 58 of these zero-day vulnerabilities, which can be used to hit companies and systems and just hurt, cause harm, maim, damage, chaos. Just throw your hands up in the air. Armageddon is upon us, right? Not really. Not really. So for those who don't know, a zero-day vulnerability is a vulnerability in a system or in a company that the only person that knows about it is the hacker, the attacker. And then a zero-day attack is when that vulnerability is implemented. The hacker or the attacker, I hate to use the word hacker, but you know that's what everyone calls them, so that's what I want to do sometimes too. It's a zero-day attack is when the hacker uses that zero-day vulnerability to victimize individuals, companies, systems, what have you. All right. So the problem is that zero-day attacks have been hyped up in the media to no end. They've been hyped up. We've got 7,500 plus security companies out there. And a lot of those security companies like to really hammer that idea of the zero-day attack. You know, you got these unknown vulnerabilities out there. They're unknown. There's no way that you're going to find them. The only people who know about them are the attackers. And the attackers are going to attack you. And you won't know about it until it's too late. Until it's too late. So you have to have our product. Only our product will save you from those things that you don't know about. So pay us a lot of money to protect you. So that's what happens. And then the media, let's think about that for a second. You see any cybercrime in the media. What does the graphic show? The graphic shows this hacker in the shadows, typically wearing a hoodie. You know, maybe there's this fog machine in the background. He's hunched over a keyboard like ding, 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 and they paint cyber criminals as untouchable, unstoppable, ghosts out there, specters that you can't catch, they're computer geniuses. And then they talk about zero-day vulnerabilities on top of that because zero days are very scary, terms. The idea of not being able to defend against something because you don't know about it. I mean, that's scary. It's scary. But here's the truth of the matter. Now, like I said, I'm going to upset some people because there's going to be some SOB out there that pipes up and says, well, this zero day was used to cause this degree of damage. So you are incorrect, Mr. Johnson. So that's what somebody's going to say. And I'm going to have to sit there and say, yep, you got me on that one. But here's the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is that zero-day attacks do not matter. In my 20-year span as a cyber criminal, I had access to 2 0 days, only one of which resulted in profit. I will tell you now that if you're an attacker waiting on a 0-day attack to profit, you will starve to death. What matters is this statistic right here. 90% of every single attack uses known exploits. Known exploits. It's not the stuff we don't know about. It's not the unknown vulnerabilities. It's not the 0-day attacks. It's the stuff we do know about that we've not done anything about, that we've typically been told about for years that we need to fix, that we've not, that causes the problems. 0-day attacks don't matter. It's the shit we know about that we've not done anything about that's causing all these issues. And I'm going to give you 2 examples, and I've probably touched on this shit before, but you know what? You can't say it enough. The first example, and these are the 2 largest cyber attacks in history. And the reason we're going over this today is because the FBI issued a warning talking about attacks on critical infrastructure. All right. And that caused a lot of media organizations to start talking about, oh, well, we got to watch out about these 0-day attacks. It's the 0-day attacks. Ooh. Because the media loves to paint an inaccurate picture of what cybercrime and cyber attacks are. All right. The truth of the matter is that entire threat landscape, with very few exceptions, the threat landscape is made of known vulnerabilities that have not been plugged yet. Think of Equifax, for example. Equifax was breached because of an Apache update that had not been applied. Apache announced the update. All right. Now, before Apache put the update out, Equifax was not being attacked. Within 24 hours of Apache putting that update out, Equifax was breached, compromised, and repeatedly breached and compromised after the update. And the reason why is, think of an update as a broadcast to every single criminal on the planet telling you which door to knock on. Most attackers realize that, hey, a lot of people just don't install the updates as soon as they come out. And because of that, it's a broadcast telling you which door to knock on. As soon as that update comes out, criminals start pinging systems. And it's an automated attack. They ping and see which ones haven't been updated yet. Turns out that Equifax wasn't. Turns out that all that data was easily acquired by attackers. And that's nowhere near the largest breach in history. Nowhere near it. That wasn't a 0-day attack. Absolutely not. That was a known vulnerability that had not been patched. Now I'm going to give you 2 examples. I'm going to give you a lot more examples than that to prove my point. All right. just in case you don't trust my word for it, I'm going to give you some examples, some concrete examples that will illustrate what I'm talking about. The 2 largest cyber attacks in history are NotPetya and SolarWinds. That is a fact. Like it or not, that's a fact. And both of those attacks are nation-state attacks launched by the most sophisticated hacking groups on the planet, Russian hacking groups. NotPetya was the Sandworm group. SolarWinds, I think, was either Nobelium or Fancy Bear. Now, there's going to be some idiot out there that says, well, you can't attribute SolarWinds to the Russian government. That's not been proven. You know what? Microsoft said it. A lot of intelligence agencies said it. I will take their word over your word. We need to stop this bullshit of saying, oh, well, Jeff, we can't trust our intelligence agencies. They're saying it's the Russians, but the Russians would never do that. Yeah, well, if the Russians never do that, take a look at the friggin' Ukraine. Russia would never do anything bad. Time to grow up. Time to put on your big boy pants and realize that the real world has predators in it. The real world is not all sunshine and rainbows. Just thought I'd throw that out there for you. So NotPetya, launched by the Sandworm Group. In my uneducated opinion, not really, but my opinion is that the Sandworm Group is the top hacking group on the planet. You don't get any better than them. So what happens? What is NotPetya? Well, NotPetya comes in 2017. 2016, there was a ransomware attack called Petya, a ransomware attack. Now, NotPetya actually copies some of that Petya code to make it look like it's ransomware, but it's not. It's actually a program that's designed to destroy hard drives, and it uses known vulnerabilities. Remember that statistic, 90% of every single attack uses known vulnerabilities, all right? Now, NotPetya, what happens is the Sandworm group basically takes over the QuickBooks of the Ukraine. It takes over its update server. They take over the update server by faking a Microsoft certificate. That's a known exploit. They then send out this thing that, you know, supposedly it's an update, but it's not. It's the NotPetya malware that looks like ransomware, but it's not. It's actually a program that's designed to destroy hard drives. It uses Mimikatz, known exploit, to harvest credentials out of RAM. Mimikatz was invented by Benjamin Delpy. French guy, met him, great guy. Great guy. He actually had to release the program. I saw him give a speech on this. He had to release Mimikatz before it was ready, before he was ready to release it, because I think he said it was in Amsterdam. At the hotel, he had left his laptop there. He goes out to get a meal or something like that, comes back. There's people in the lobby that won't allow him back in his room. Won't allow him back there because, you know, they're saying, oh, we're cleaning it. There was an accident. We're cleaning your room. So after he falls for that bullshit for a few minutes, then decides, oh, something is wrong here. He runs past them, goes up to his room. There are two men in his room hunkered over his laptop. Russian agents hunkered over his laptop, obviously looking at it, getting the code and everything else. And that prompts him, they leave the room, that prompts him to release Mimikatz immediately at that point. Mimikatz harvests credentials out of RAM when using Microsoft products. All right, turns out that even after you sign off of the program, those credentials, those login credentials are in RAM. So NotPetya uses Mimikatz. Known exploit. NotPetya uses Eternal Blue and Eternal Romance, known NSA exploits, which had been, everyone had known about them for well over a year. The patch had been available for well over a year. Turns out not many people had installed the patch. Like I said, a patch, it's basically just a broadcast to every single criminal on the planet, telling them which door to knock on to gain access. That's what a patch is, because people don't install patches usually, or they install them late. It takes them a while to sit there and punch that button that says update, update. Yeah. So uses that. It looks for outward-facing SMBs, remote access to systems. Now, that's been bitched about for years. 4 years. You would think that because everyone had been complaining about it, hey, you need to shut down these ports, you would think there wouldn't be many open. There were millions of SMBs open. And what happens is the attack, it targets the Ukrainian people because basically a lot of these attacks know no boundaries. They don't, respect nations' borders. The attack quickly gets out of Ukraine. It hits Maersk, it hits pharmaceutical companies that have still not been mentioned today, causes over $50 billion worth of damage. Now, on record right now, NotPetya is the largest attack in history. Okay, now it's going to be dwarfed because right now all the chips haven't been counted from the SolarWinds attack. The SolarWinds attack, and I want to make sure that I'm talking about this properly. So let's pull up. Actually, I did some research right before it. All right. So I want to explain, because there were a couple of people from Lex Fridman that said, oh, he doesn't know what SolarWinds is. Yes, I do know what it is, you assholes. See, on my show, I can call anybody I want to, anything, and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. If you don't like it, don't tune in. It won't hurt my feelings. So what is SolarWinds? SolarWinds is a major software company based in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Austin, Texas, which provides system management tools for network and infrastructure monitoring. Now, that's important. Network and infrastructure monitoring and other technical services to hundreds of thousands of organizations around the world. All right. Now, that was breached. I mean, FireEye was on it. All these other, almost every Fortune 500 company uses SolarWinds. Okay. A lot of government agencies use SolarWinds. So to give you an idea of some of the things they got the Microsoft source code for 365, maybe Outlook, whatever it was. Reuters reported on that because someone said, oh, they didn't get that. Yes, they did. Reuters reported on it. They also got access to, here you go. It is estimated that at least 20,000 customers were impacted by the cyber attack. The Russian hackers infiltrated the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Commerce, the Treasury Department, the Justice Department, and the Energy Department's Nuclear Security Administration. The Administrative Office of U.S. Courts disclosed that the cyber attack damaged PACER, the federal court management system. Basically, SolarWinds handled just about every damn thing. Just about every damn thing. Compromising that gave a snapshot to the attackers of every single thing that they wanted. They got PII. They got sensitive information. They got snapshots of source codes from different companies. They got companies. They got every single thing. And because SolarWinds handled almost every single Fortune 500 company, and as you see, a shitload of U.S. government agencies, that's just a sampling of it. Because SolarWinds handled all that, this attack is catastrophic. No one's really talking about it right now because if you start talking about it, the only thing you can really do is put your head in your hands and cry. It's that bad. Once all the chips are counted, once people actually get out there and actually start talking about this shit, that will be the most damaging attack in history. It's a very sophisticated attack. So sophisticated that one of the avenues to gain entry was the password SolarWinds 123. Very sophisticated. That doesn't sound like an unknown vulnerability to me. It doesn't. We've seen a lot of news about SolarWinds. Well, it was a supply chain attack. It was a supply chain attack. What does that actually mean? It means that instead of hitting the main company itself, instead of hitting SolarWinds, you gain access by looking at a third-party company that accesses SolarWinds. You look to compromise that. By compromising the third party, you compromise the primary target at that point. Here's the stat on that, because like I said, 0 days really don't matter. It's the known vulnerabilities that cause the problem. The actual statistic is that 56% of companies have experienced a breach because of third-party access. 56%. Of those 56% of companies, guess what? Most companies have no idea how many third-party companies access their system. Of those third-party companies which access their system, they don't vet any of those third-party companies. Your system is only as strong as the weakest device which accesses it. Yes, you see now, you see what I'm getting at? This idea of 0 day attacks being the problem? No, it's the stuff that we know about. It's the shit we've been told about that we're not doing anything about that creates this threat landscape that's out there, this huge threat landscape that's out there. I've got a 130-page printout over here in the corner that details how SolarWinds knew of the vulnerabilities that were there, and they lied about it for years. I've talked to one of the insiders over at SolarWinds that says the exact same thing. Now, SolarWinds is, of course, contesting that, and we will see how the court rules on that. The truth will out at the end of the day, and we will see what actually happened. But the point is that you've got two nation-state attacks, both of which are the number one and number two most damaging, most sophisticated attacks on record. Both of those attacks launched by the top hacking groups on the planet, nation-state hacking groups. Both of those attacks use known exploits, not zero-day attacks. It is not zero-day attacks. It is not vulnerabilities that cause the issue. It is, or unknown vulnerabilities that cause the issue. It's the stuff we do know about that causes the problem. And the reason that I'm coming up with this show today is because the FBI issued a warning talking about watch out for critical infrastructure attacks. What does that look like? What happens if an attack hits our electrical grid and shuts down our electricity? Man, that's pretty bad. Or shuts down our water supply or our gas supply. What happens when critical infrastructure is targeted, and how easy is it to target critical infrastructure? It just so happens that, I pulled up an article. I'm always looking at articles. I pulled up an article from the MIT Technology Review. Article came out April 21st, 2022. And the name of the article is "These Hackers Showed Just How Easy It Is to Target Critical Infrastructure." So it was basically a game. They came in, they invited all these hackers to come in, and they said, "Hey, we're gonna have some mock infrastructure. We're going to use this program right here, which is throughout a lot of infrastructure uses across the United States. We're going to see how long it takes you guys to breach it, to see if you could actually gain access. And then we know once you gain access that, it's Katie by the door. It's Katie by the door. You can do whatever you want to. You can cause as much damage as you want to. You could destroy systems. You could turn systems off. You could, when I'm thinking critical infrastructure, I'm thinking electric. I'm thinking, phone. I'm thinking water. I'm thinking hospitals. I'm thinking emergency services like police, fire departments, 911, things like that. Those are all critical infrastructures. What happens when we no longer have access to that? When the power grid is potentially destroyed? When there is no water at the tap? We live on an on-demand service. We do. When we hit the light switch, we expect it to come on. When we go to the grocery store, that's on demand too. That's supply chain in the grocery store, which has been massively disrupted lately. So when all that gets disrupted or destroyed, what happens? Things turn to chaos pretty quickly. Well, the article details, and they were giving out cash prizes, hey, how quickly can you get access? And it turns out that most of these guys in this article were able to get access to these critical infrastructure type systems within seconds, if not minutes. Now, those are not nation state attackers. They are professionals or white hat hackers. There's a difference between a white hat hacker and a black hat hacker. A white hat hacker does not have the same type of motivation as a black hat, and certainly doesn't have the same type of motivation as a nation state attacker. They really don't even have the same type of skill as a nation state attacker. So we're talking about these types of things right here. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, because we are in one. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Tucker and Dale versus Evil, but there's a great line in that. If you've not seen it, you need to watch it. I think it's still on Netflix, but you need to watch it. It's a funny ass film. And Tucker and Dale are these two redneck guys, kind of uneducated, that, these group of teenagers think that they're serial killers, but they're not. And it plays on that all the way through. And there's one scene in that where Tucker and Dale, this guy has just went through a wood chipper. Yes, I know. It gets a little gory. He goes through a wood chipper. They're carrying half the body, and a cop stops him, and they're like, "We have had one doozy of a day. We are in a pickle." Yeah, I would say so. We are in a pickle. It's a doozy of a day in cybersecurity because our critical infrastructure is pretty much wide open. You can talk about known vulnerabilities. I was very fortunate a few years ago to keynote a infrastructure conference up in North Ohio. And while there, they were doing basically a social engineering test. They were dropping thumb drives in a parking lot, and then they would see who if anyone would pick it up. And yes, someone would always pick up that thumb drive. And then the next question was, well, will somebody plug it in? Yes, somebody will always plug it in. And it turns out that once it was plugged in, if there was any file on there that mentioned salary, someone would always click on it. Always. So you see, that's what I'm talking about. It's this idea that these attacks do not have to have 0 days involved. They do not have to be highly sophisticated. Sure, the program itself can be very sophisticated. If you look at Stuxnet, for example, that Iranian attack, you know, the software was evidently built by the Israelis in conjunction with the United States. So that attack was all about causing damage to the Iranian nuclear system by causing these things to overheat. And Stuxnet, the program, caused it to overheat. It was a program that said, hey, turn off all the fans, make sure everything runs at full capacity, and we'll cause these things to overheat and be destroyed like that. All right. How was it actually implemented in the system? Well, that thumb drive, depending on the story you listen to, it was either dropped in a parking lot or you had an insider that simply walked in and plugged a thumb drive into the system. And then it went like wildfire throughout the system and caused a lot of damage. So that was not a 0 day at all. Yes, Stuxnet, there were some 0 days there, absolutely. But the deployment was not. All right. So yes, 0 days can cause damage. They absolutely can. But most attacks don't need 0 days. You need known vulnerabilities for these things to be successful, as we've seen over and over and over again. 90% of every single attack uses known exploits. 56% of companies have experienced a breach because of third parties, which they don't know how many third parties are accessing the system. None of the third parties are vetted. Blah, 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 blah. 41% of every single router on the planet has the default password. Think about that for a second. 41% of every single router, doesn't matter if it's an individual or a business, financial institution, what have you, 41% of every single router has the default password. We're not even talking about IoT devices, which billions of them are out there. How many of those have the default password? Oh my God, you don't even want to know. That's the stats we're talking about. If you want to talk about it, it's not just these huge infrastructure attacks. It's not just attacks against huge companies. These known vulnerabilities, these known exploits also target individuals. I'll give you some stats on that. 80% of every single person on the planet uses the same password across multiple websites, or a very similar password and login across multiple websites. That's why credential stuffing is so damn popular and so damn effective. Because I can send out a phishing email. It looks like it comes from your financial institution. Your level of awareness is going to be high enough. You won't fall for it. But if I send out a phishing email, it looks like it comes from your streaming service. Your level of awareness is not that high. You will fall for it. I get your credentials, and then because of credential stuffing, I go to sleep at night. Those credentials are pinging through thousands of different sites and systems. I have access the next morning to your bank, your credit card, your tax statements, everything else that I need. That's your ass at that point. So, and 80% of people do that. 80%. Credit freezes. I preach about credit freezes. Credit freezes have been free since 2018. The percent, 12% of the population have credit freezes in place. So that's not a 0 day attack. That's not an unknown vulnerability. That's something people have been warned they need to do, and they haven't. Same thing for passwords. Multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor MFA is extremely effective. It is a tool which needs to be used. Here's the secret, though. If you're looking at MFA in a system like a financial institution or something like that, they are happy. They are pleased as punch if 12% of the customers have adopted multi-factor authentication. 12%, 12 to 14%, that's a high number. So what does that tell me? That means, hey, man, yeah, you're wide open. You're wide open. All right. If you look at identity theft, passport fraud, about 12% of the U.S. population has a passport, which means that other 88% are wide open to have passports registered in their names. except with my picture on it. All right, so it's not zero-day attacks. It's not unknown vulnerabilities. It's the stuff we know about. It's the stuff we've been told about for years that we're not doing anything about that causes the problem, both as a consumer and as a business, as an institution, as an organization. These are the problems. These are the issues. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Proper cybersecurity is not sexy. It's not romantic. It's simply getting down there and doing the things that you need to do to secure your system. All right? Your individual, your company, your organization. It's not sexy. It's not. It's just simply doing what you know you need to do. And if you don't know that, you need to bring somebody in that will tell you that. All right? Both as an individual and as a company. You know, that's my show today. That's my show. It's a short show. It was going to be about money laundering. I will do money laundering next week. I've got to talk about the show that's on Netflix, Hunt for the Crypto King. Turns out I know that guy. Yeah, I used to do business with that guy, helped train that guy. So we're going to talk about Omar Dhanani, a.k.a. Michael Patron, and what his ass has been up to since he ripped everyone else off on Quadriga. He's been busy ripping people off after that. So we're going to talk about that next week as well. I am Brett Johnson. This is the Brett Johnson Show. What do we say? We say stay safe. Stay safe. Stay secure. Stay vigilant. Stay vigilant. That's big. You have to develop a sense of situational awareness, both online and in the physical world. Situational awareness. Know your environment. Know the pitfalls of your environment. Secure yourself against that. Stay safe overall. At the end of the day, what do we say? This is the Brett Johnson Show. At the end of the day, just do the right damn thing. I'm Brett Johnson. Thank you for watching. Until next time.